Everything feels out of control. At least that's what we're hearing from higher education CFOs managing the complexities of institutional operations. Systems have accumulated in layers across campus, and nobody really knows how to get it under control. Hi, I'm Shannon Canzanella with Accounting Seed, and I had the opportunity to sit down with Jason Belland, executive in residence at Attain Partners, to talk about how CFOs can lead this shift from chaos to clarity. Jason has spent over 15 years advising higher education institutions and has a wealth of knowledge to share with us today. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Let's get into it. Thank you so much, Jason, for being with us today and doing this interview. Really excited to hear from you. But before we dive in, can you tell us a little bit about your background in higher education and how this partnership between Attain Partners and Accounting Seed came about?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely great to be here with you today. Jason Belland. I've been working in higher education and education technology for over 20 years, including 7 years at Salesforce, leading education cloud strategy, 8 years at Columbia Business School, leading CRM. And now I'm at Attain Partners as an executive in residence, helping our clients with strategically thinking about how do they go forward with technology across the enterprise. This partnership between Attain and Accounting Seed is really incredible because Attain is bringing end-to-end advisory services from thinking about an implementation project to doing the work to then sustaining that project over a period of time. Accounting Seed is really right in the middle of that, providing a Salesforce native accounting solution that helps bridge the gap between advancement and finance as they try to coordinate information and strategy.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think it's interesting to hear about that experience as we are, diving into this conversation today. So you've worked with higher ed institutions for over 15 years, right?
That's right.
Great. How in that time has the role of the CFO changed, and what surprised you most about that evolution?
I mean, there's so many changes that have happened with the CFO's role and frankly with the CIO's role as well. There were roles that were traditionally more of a service providers to the organization have really changed and become more strategic partners to the institution as the institution is thinking about how do we drive growth. And that is an enrollment strategy, it's an advancement, it's in technology as well. And so the CFO has shifted from being kind of a service provider, a steward of the organization, to really a strategic partner to think about, how do we make the right kinds of investments to drive not only growth today, but resilience and sustainable growth over a period of time. And, when it comes to technology, there's tools, AI obviously is top of mind for everybody that and learning management systems, CRM, all of these investments, they're no longer it's no longer just the plumbing or the foundational work. These tools are inextricably linked to driving institutional growth, to driving institutional strategy. And so the CFO has a role to play here to make sure that as an institution, we're making investments that are going to pay off long term for us.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that change too, which is a great lead into my next question for you. Um, when a CFO in the higher ed space is evaluating new technology, what costs do you see them missing? And like what should they be calculating beyond the, licensing fees and associated costs of that nature?
I think the phrase built to last always comes to mind. And how do you build a technology structure and an organization that is built to last? And so when you're making
Mm.
an investment into technology, it's really important that you consider what does that real investment look like? It's not just the licenses, not just the enablement of folks, but culturally, the thing you don't want to do is make an investment and just move the same culture, the same processes, the same things that maybe aren't ideal into a new technology. Maybe that will give you some incremental gains, but that's not really transformational work. What you really want to do is take an opportunity where you are looking at a new technology investment and take that opportunity to revisit processes, revisit how teams are structured, how do we work together. So that is really looking at licensing costs, ongoing maintenance, but also staff training, rethinking processes, and really rethinking and maybe thinking in a fresh way about what is the real ROI on some of these investments. And that's what I'm hearing from CFOs, but I'm also hearing that from the business side, where business leaders, business units within institutions are being asked to sharpen their pencils and take a fresh look at what is the real ROI on these investments that we're making in technology. I think importantly, the institutions that are doing this really well aren't just thinking about it from a cost-cutting perspective, and sometimes that can be the
Yeah.
tenor of that conversation is ROI in the sense of we need to pull back. But institutions that are doing it well they have a growth mindset, but it's a smart growth mindset and thinking about we may have more limited dollars, but we need to be careful about how we deploy those dollars. And people often, I think the wrong mindset is do more with less. The reverse of that, do less with more, is kind of the winning mindset here. And I think the mindset as you're making technology decisions, how do we invest in fewer tools, but actually do more with them because we're placing our bets more strategically.
And you hit on a good point too. I think what we have seen too at accounting seed in a variety of different industries, but certainly in higher education and nonprofit, is when they're looking at a new technology solution, they're looking to mirror the exact processes they already have in a new solution. And then you step back and go, then what am I really trying to solve here? It's just giving something a new look, right? Versus making
Yeah.
some real strategic change that's going to benefit and bring you that ROI that you're looking for and in need of.
Yeah, and look, I mean, there's definitely plenty of use cases where, it just adding some new technology can help you. So I'm not
Yeah.
dismissing that because that
Yeah.
that is a thing and that can certainly provide value. It's just often a missed opportunity to say, like,
Yeah.
how could we do this even better than we have before? And it can be challenging.
You had mentioned before that advancement and finance teams often have conflicting data, conflicting numbers that they're working with. So can you walk us through what's usually happening there and why that might keep happening?
I mean, yeah, sometimes so the foundationally, there's different systems that do different things, right? You've got Salesforce is your system of engagement, donor management, donor engagement. Finance is tracking information, doing the accounting in a different system. There's often other systems in the middle of that. And so oftentimes that orchestra is missing its conductor effectively, right? And so the opportunity here is to say, not sometimes it makes sense to consolidate systems, absolutely. Sometimes you actually do for any number of different reasons, for audit reasons, for the specialization of software reasons, you want to have different systems. The important piece is to get that conductor in place so the whole orchestra starts playing the right song together. And that is through creating a single source of truth across the enterprise that creates that trust layer so that data is not out of sync. It's not duplicated. There's not conflicts on data where, there's different versions of an individual across different systems. That needs to get all reconciled so that from a business perspective, as you're looking in total at your alumni engagement, how are donors engaging with you from a fundraising perspective, from an engagement perspective, you're getting one point of view, one single source of truth view that helps you not only today to do strategic engagement with those donors and find the right donor for the right purpose, right cause that they care about, but also to think more thoughtfully about what are the things, what's working, what's not, how do we maybe need to pivot as an organization to drive institutional growth.
Yeah, so kind of the shift a little bit from departmental preference, I guess,
Yes.
to more institutional strategy
Yeah.
as a whole.
Yes. And I think it's important. There are many reasons across a large institution where you do want departments to be free to run
Yeah.
their and to do what they need to do for their business. So it's not and then there's other instances where you do want things need to be aligned exactly. But so you want to create, that's why I kind of was thinking orchestra or jazz band or something. You want to create a situation where those individual departments can run but often and do what they need to do to drive their part of the business and not be constrained. and which is why Salesforce is a fantastic platform to allow you to do that. Because at the same time, you want everyone to have the same songbook effectively, right? So that's those foundational data systems, the single source of truth. We all have the same songbook. And then through platforms like Salesforce, you then can allow individual departments to have their own configurations, their own way they want to communicate and engage, and which is fantastic. But we have that foundational trust layer, that songbook that the orchestra is working from.
So one of the biggest challenges in higher ed that we've talked about is getting different departments to agree on these technology decisions, but we know it's a lot deeper than that. You've talked about starting with outcomes, right, rather than the technology itself. So what does that actually look like in practice for these institutions?
I think, yeah, it's easy to maybe get a little bit paralyzed by how big some of these challenges can be in bringing together large institutions and folks across those institutions to align. I think one thing that if you're a CFO, one of the most important relationships that you can form probably today is with the CIO, and to really think about, what is the organizational strategy? What are we trying to achieve? What are the outcomes we're looking for to drive institutional growth for our alumni, for our students, for our corporate relationships that we have? What do those look like? How can technology then support those relationships? And if you believe that there's no interaction that there's no moment that an alumni will have or that a student will have that is isolated. Nothing, there's no engagement that happens on its own. Everything is connected to something else. If you believe that to be true, then there are no siloed interactions. They all have connective tissue. Then what is also true is that you shouldn't be purchasing technology in a siloed way, because that is then creating disjointed experiences that is not leading up to a unified experience, that is not driving toward your institutional goals of how you want to drive growth. And this, what I have seen consistently is when the CIO, when IT leadership and finance leadership are deeply connected as partners and culturally deeply connected as partners too, in terms of how they talk across the institution about purchasing and using the carrot versus the stick on purchasing to help drive rogue IT spending. People buy small email tools, a thing that does this, a thing that does that, which may feel good in the moment because it's easy, but ultimately creates these siloed experiences that don't add up for an end customer, alumni, or student. When folks come together to say, I care more about the growth of this institution. I care more about students. I care more about alumni than I care about me buying an email tool with my credit card today and not telling anybody about it.
Hmm.
Like these are the things that start building wins and start building trust, and maybe a little friction at first, but ultimately people start seeing the value when the constituents they care about, corporate relations, students, prospects, alumni, start having a better experience and start feeling just more connected to the institution that they care about.
To get kind of really, really practical here, and give some of these CFOs some tools in their back pocket, what are some of the questions that they should be bringing to these planning conversations in general?
I think it's great to just start with understanding the landscape of your institution, understanding which systems exist today. Really, I think it's always great to whiteboard that out. What systems exist today? Which multiple versions of truth do we have today? What is the process for, engaging with an alumni from day one when we engage with them to their first gift, to subsequent gifts, to their attending athletic events, all of these things, mapping them out. It's one thing to talk about them. I've always seen aha moments when you start asking these questions. How ready are we for AI? Where are these different data points? What are the processes we use today? When you literally start mapping them on a whiteboard in a room with real people,
Right.
that's when the aha moments of like, wait a minute, what is that? Why do we do that? And should we? rethink this seems really complicated and time consuming. Should we investigate whether AI makes sense to automate some of this in a way that is still aligned with trust in our values and data privacy? Like these things come to mind more when you're having those conversations in the room. So I'd start by kind of identifying things across campus. I would really look for the harder problems to solve where you feel like those are the things that if we do them really well, if we just focus on solving those problems, that will actually create a more delightful experience for folks and then continue down that path.
That's great advice. Thank you, Jason. Thanks for being here today and
Thank
sharing
you.
this advice and just taking the time to share your expertise here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is great. Excited for our partnership together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching and listening into this conversation with Jason. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you want to do a deeper dive into this topic, you can visit us at accountingseed.com at this URL. And if you're ready to see what unified advancement and finance operations could look like for you on Salesforce, Accounting Seed and Attain Partners are here to help at any time. Again, thanks so much for watching.